Hi everybody, it's Couple Indemnity. We are a film podcast about the love of cinema by two very dedicated film fans. I'm Hal, and as ever, I'm joined by Izzy.
Hi everyone.
So Iz, for this week, in the midst of our July heatwave, you chose what you deemed to be a summer film, and it was the 1991 remake of Father the Bride. And of course, you're a big Nancy Meyers fan as well. So was that what tempted you to select this one?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the ones that I had heard really good things about in terms of particularly like the classic kind of Nancy Meyers set, like with the house and the kind of the kind of grand but cozy and homely feel of the interior of the house. So that's what I'd heard a lot about when it came to this film, and I'd heard or seen kind of clips on social media of various different speeches that happened throughout the film. So I'd heard really good things. And I'm a really, really big fan of the Parent Trap and The Holiday. They're my two Nancy Meyers staples.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say, and we'll get into it certainly has Nancy Meyers themes and motifs dotted throughout, and themes that she would go on to refine much later in her career. And in terms of the actual film, the plot I was very familiar with, as I mentioned at the end of the last podcast, in that I was very impressed by the original of this film, which I watched a few years ago with Spencer Tracy. So it's going to be difficult for me to not make a lot of comparisons throughout this. It's fair to say we had fairly mixed feelings about it, but overall it was an easy watching, enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Family romantic comedy, I think we agree on, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's get into it now. It's Father the Bride. We'll play the trailer for it now.
I used to think a wedding was a simple affair. Boy and girl meet, they fall in love, they say I do. I was wrong. That's getting married. A wedding is an entirely different proposition. You fathers will understand. You have an adorable little girl who looks up to you and adores you in a way you could never have imagined.
Dad, I met a man in Rome, and we're getting married.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm engaged. I'm getting married.
Right then, I realized my day had passed. Annie, it's a little nippy out. You might want to put on a sweater.
Dad, it's okay. I'm kind of warm.
So there's a chill in the air, and you've been on a plane.
Dad, I'm fine.
Annie, it is kind of cold out.
It is?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. I'll get my jacket.
I was no longer the man in my little girl's life. Old Dad was history. I remember seeing someone who looked like Brian's twin on America's Most Wanted.
First, the wedding of our children.
Wedding coordinator? What's a wedding coordinator?
Master and Mrs. Boggs in the lovely bride.
We're going to color coordinate with the swans, right?
Swans? I have a great idea where we can have this wedding.
Where?
The steak pit.
I don't think you want the word pit on the wedding invitation.
Father the Bride, released on the 20th December 1991, based on the original 1949 novel by Edward Streeter, and of course a remake of the original 1950 movie, starring Steve Martin and Diane Keaton, and directed by Charles Shire. Can you give us the synopsis, please?
The synopsis is, George Banks leads the perfect life with his wife, daughter and son. However, when Annie, his daughter, decides to get married, he has a hard time letting go of her.
So this one, I don't think we need to talk about scene by scene, but I think we can talk about the themes at play here, and I think we can talk about the focus of the movie in so much as at times it feels like it's maybe in the first 20 minutes or the first quarter of the film, it's much more geared towards the comedic elements, and then it kind of eventually evens out to become a far more typical romantic film that we felt was much more of a Nancy Meyers affair.
Yeah, I guess there's parts of it that are very recognisable as Nancy Meyers, and I actually felt like that. I know we're not going scene by scene, but that very opening kind of panning shot at the beginning of the film along the floor and the table and the aftermath of the wedding, because this is essentially like a circular narrative, this film. It starts at the end. So that panning shot along the table and the glassware and the cake that's left over really reminded me of the start of The Parent Trap, when it's like the wedding that's already happened in the past and being on the QE2 on the cruise ship where the parents met.
Yeah.
And that with the kind of jazzy soul music as well. So that for me was quite a nice opening because I was like, oh, I can see Nancy Meyers written all over this already. And so that was quite a nice opening for me. But I guess we should kind of get into that first kind of dinner table scene because it is pivotal to the whole plot.
Yeah, I mean, the overall setup is that it's a very kind of middle-class American family in California with 2 kids, and the oldest daughter is at that kind of age now where she is seeing boys. And the dinner table scene is her awkwardly breaking it to her parents, Diane Keane and Steve Martin, that she has not only met a boy, but she's also engaged to him.
It's not even like she's 18 and this is ridiculous. She's 22. Like, I guess that's kind of why it seems at the beginning maybe a little bit like he's being ridiculous, because she is a fully fledged adult. It's not that she is a child. So it kind of feels like you're being way too overprotective here.
Yeah, I mean, this, in terms of the adults, this sets the theme for at least the first half of the film. It's focused on his hostility to the idea of her getting married because he views her as his little girl still. But the mother is absolutely delighted and is all for it and cannot see any reason for resentment or to stop her doing it, or even to be cautious in any way. Some of the funniest lines in this dinner table scene come from the young boy, played by Kieran Culkin. And again, I think that goes on throughout the rest of the movie. Because he almost has the wit of an adult.
Yeah.
He's very smart.
I think that's kind of the dynamic they have throughout the whole film, isn't it? That Steve Martin's character is seen as this like childish, stamping his foot, having a tantrum, not getting his own way kind of character. And the son, is it Max? He's seen as kind of wise beyond his years. And
Matty.
Oh, Matty.
Matty, yeah.
And he's seen as the reasonable. So there's that kind of juxtaposition, I guess, in our expectations of how they behave. So he's acting like the adult and George is acting like the child. And that's established early on as well. My favourite bit around the table was actually when Nina has said, not Nina, when Annie has said, I'm getting married, I've met a guy in Rome and I'm getting married. And it changes to like a younger actress, about 5 or 6.
Which happens a few times throughout, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As we go on. It's the constant juxtaposition of the past, her as a young girl.
And how he sees her.
It's how he sees her, yeah. We then get the first scene when she brings him back.
Yeah.
Which I think is only meant to take place an hour or 2 later, after he has consoled her a little bit and he's tried to temper her down a little bit. Because he doesn't want to upset her. He wants to maintain good relations with his daughter. But then we meet Brian. And Brian is it's very much like kind of overcompensating. And he's desperate to please his potential father and mother-in-law. Yeah.
And it's clear he's very nervous and keen to please. And he comes out with this kind of like romantic speech. And Nina's all like over it and completely falls in love with him on the spot. And can't be more supportive, and George thinks that the whole thing is like he's being fake. And
Steve Martin really specialises in that kind of sarcastic scowl, and he really perfects it in this scene, doesn't he? I mean, he does it throughout in all of his movies, but he really does hone it in this scene.
A little while ago, I showed you the first Cheaper by the Dozen off the podcast. We didn't podcast the episode, but it was like a couple of months ago.
I think it was back in January or February. Yeah,
and but the second one has a very similar dynamic where one of his daughters starts dating and he ends up like him and Eugene Levy are the opposite fathers, and they end up stalking their kids to the cinema to watch them.
In Cheaper by the Dozen, it's Hilary Duff, isn't it, who's the daughter?
It's actually the young actress who went on to be in like Step Up or one of those dance films.
Yeah.
But yeah, he plays the kind of grouchy father quite well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the path of his career later when we get into the cast, but I think by this point in his career, he started to specialise in that kind of father of a relatable American family.
And not even that kind of just general like grump. character, because we see that in Planes, Trains as well.
Yeah, he does do grouchy well. I would say that, but he never does the extremes. He's always in the middle, I think, in the way he plays it, which is why I think he makes this character quite relatable and certainly sympathetic in the early part of the scene.
I feel like at the start of the film, he isn't so sympathetic because you're thinking you need to see that your daughter is 22 years old.
Yes, but he's only just been told they've even met, and before he knows
that
it,
is true. It is kind of throwing it all at him. It actually reminded me a little bit of, you might not remember this, but Christmas with the Cranks has a similar dynamic with Tim Allen and what's her name?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
And their daughter brings home like a Brazilian guy, and she's like, oh, and I've just met him. Oh, and we're getting married. And he's having like a meltdown, like banging his head against the wall in the background while Jamie Lee Curtis is on the phone, like screaming with joy.
That film was very funny. I
love that film.
Yeah.
But that's a similar dynamic. It's always, if it's the dad and the daughter, the dad is always disappointed that his daughter's getting married because it means taking, like, him losing something. And this is a very old sentiment, right? Like, the man is losing something by giving up their daughter to another man. Like, it's actually a very kind of, it's rooted in the patriarchy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And we kind of see this, and it almost becomes a bit class focused as well in the next scene, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie, certainly in terms of comedy, which is when they go to meet Brian's parents as a meeting of both in-laws in Bel Air in this big mansion. When George first enters, he says to Nina that they could fit their entire living room,
their entire house into
the foyer. And he's not wrong, really, because there is a vast difference between both of their properties. And Brian's parents seem nice and cordial, and there's no kind of awkward relations there. But George is finding it difficult to withhold his amazement at the money behind Brian's family, but also just how indifferent he is to the idea of his daughter being married so soon.
But there's that bit, isn't there, where he's like, I'm finding it hard to not kind of cave to what this guy's saying, because Brian's dad is talking so much sense. He's saying, like, we know it's quick, but, you know, they're adults, they need to make their own decision, and we think that Annie is lovely, and we met her in Rome when we were there, and so they've actually had some time to get used to the idea of the relationship before the marriage. So, but they seem very reasonable and very kind of normal. And that's why George then just seems like completely chaotic. And
yeah, it might allude to the fact that the daughter, Annie, knows her dad very well and probably knew that he wouldn't take this well. So that's why they may have withheld it for so long.
Yeah, maybe. And then there's the bit where obviously he goes to the bathroom because he feels like he's hyperventilating.
Yeah, so as soon as this bathroom scene, as soon as he opened the medicine cabinet, you just know, especially
something's
for me,
going to go wrong.
Something's going to go wrong. Either they're all going to go flying, all the tablets, or something's going to fall off the wall. And it does. It's the second cupboard that he opens. Literally,
it's a false cupboard. It's not
a false cupboard.
It's just part of the mirror.
It's a classic.
And he pulls it off the wall.
in for a physical joke, yeah, and it's very well done. And I think this is the kind of comedy that Steve Martin does so well. And then he starts getting chased by the Dobermans in the household.
Oh, when he goes into the study and he's kind of caught with the bank book.
And he's just opened it, and then the Dobermans walk in.
He's under the table because he's hiding from the maid.
Yeah.
And he's hiding under the table, and the Doberman's like facing him, growling. And he goes, I'm relaxed and I'm leaving.
I know. The Doberman won't stop showing its teeth.
And then there's a classic Steve Martin gag, which we were saying where we've seen it in other films. And I'm sure, yes, it's in that exact scene I was just talking about in the cinema with Eugene Levy, where Steve Martin ends up like hanging off the railings of the cinema balcony.
Yeah.
And he's caught. It's a classic Steve Martin gag where he ends up hanging off of something.
He uses it repeatedly in the Pink Panther remake with John Reno.
Yeah.
He loves it in that film because it's the Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau thing is the perfect foil and vehicle for the physical comedy that he goes to extremes with in that movie. But we see it here, and it's very funny. And then he goes and he loses the bank book in the swimming pool.
He chucks it up, but the maid like at the exact wrong time, like flaps a towel or something to air it over the balcony, hits the bank book, which lands in the pool. And so then he's trying to fish it out, but then the Dobermans are coming and he ends up falling in.
It's very funny. But what I also found funny was the reaction of Diane Keaton when she's trying to distract the in-laws through the conversation, just to keep the.
And when he falls in, and she's just smiling. She's not like angry or anything. She just thinks he's being absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. But from there,
I feel like that's the real turning point in the film for me.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a hinge point, and this is where it starts to all go a little bit silly.
Silly, I think, is the right word, because the next pivotal scene in the plot is the first meeting of the wedding planners.
Wedding
coordinators. So, yeah, and it's a totally new term to him. And we meet the assistant, and we meet the actual coordinator, played by Martin Short.
Yeah, you want to talk about him?
Yeah, I mean, what is there to say? I mean, was it funny? I don't know.
No.
You could barely understand a word he says, and you feel like you're with George in this point because he can't understand a word he says. The daughter and the mother are playing along, and either they're pretending or they actually know what he's saying.
I feel like
it's almost like something from LOLO, like the comedy series where they're taking the mick out of French accents. But because it's German and because he's so camp, it's just ridiculous.
I feel like if they'd left it in that first initial bit of dialogue, it would have been fine. But the fact that this goes on and on throughout the rest of the film, and you actually can't understand what he's saying to him, and I know that's kind of the gag, is that
it quickly loses its novelty.
But it loses its novelty so quickly, and it actually becomes really grating,
irritating. And you already know that this is going to be a fairly important supporting character because this is the wedding coordinator. So you know you're almost stuffed 5 minutes in because like this guy isn't changing the way he's talking.
No.
So that was a bit of a downer for me, that scene. Yeah.
And this is where I think it already has started at this point, especially in terms of class. But this is where the wedding takes a real turn into the cost of the wedding as well.
Yeah, and I can't remember how much from the original that was also the case. I do remember there being a lot of focus on money, and I think that may be the case from the book, because to George, it is an exorbitant amount. We calculated it on the old inflation conversion.
So they say that it's going to cost £250 a head, and they're inviting 150 people to the wedding reception.
Yeah.
And this is going to be in the house, and this is to incorporate things like the invitations, the food, the decorations, the swans, and all of the outfit and everything, basically. And they calculate it by head, and they say it's going to cost £250 per person. So I worked it out and I was like, right, so 250 times 150 means that this in 1991 would cost $37,500. Take into consideration inflation, if they had that same wedding now, it would cost £92,269.55, not pound, dollars, 55 cent.
Yeah, and I think it would probably be more as well because now companies, and there's certain huge careers in wedding planners now. So now they can justify much more of a cost to it.
And I think at this point, I think you would have a different reaction. I think different people would have different reactions to this film. And here is where your own personal experiences play quite a big role, I think, in your response. Because I think it depends on your background, right? If you come from a very rich family and you're nodding along with Nina and Annie going, this makes perfect sense to have swans in your front garden at a wedding, and that's not ridiculous at all, and that makes perfect sense to spend $1,200 on a cake that you've never even tasted just by looks alone. That makes perfect sense. Then you would be on their side. But as someone who's not got that background, I'm going, this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm completely with him.
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest criticisms of this film is I think generally the script is fairly insipid and it is moving into very cheesy, schmaltzy territory. But one of the scenes I actually thought was genuinely poor and really bad and not funny was when I think George has ruined the original tux that he wants to wear, and he goes off in a huff, and he goes to the supermarket and he starts like tearing open like hot dog buns. Yeah, and then he gets himself arrested when he argues with one of the staff.
Yeah.
And then he finds himself in jail, And just, you think, where is this going? It's not funny at all.
I think because it had to get to a point, didn't it, where
He's reached a meltdown about it.
he's had a meltdown, and the way, like, Nina, his wife, treats him is like, you're in everybody's way. You are being a child about this. Like, you've never taken me to Europe, so I know we have the money. It's not about that, and you're going to give our daughter the best wedding ever. And she basically blackmails him into getting him released from prison or jail.
The writing doesn't allow them to portray any kind of adult relationship where they talk it out and they discuss it like an adult couple would
The
do.
only scene that they have where he's kind of like laying down the law a bit is where he says, we need to cut down the guest list. So they each have like a pack of cards of the people they want to invite. This is another thing. This is the expectation that this is when weddings become more about the parents and their friends inviting their colleagues and things like that because they're paying for the wedding than it does about the actual couple getting married.
Yeah, it becomes like a social statement.
So, yeah, definitely. And they're like, oh, my colleague who I haven't seen for 15 years has to come because I worked with them for so long. Something like that. But that's the only scene where he's kind of like challenging. And then he sees Nina, like she's fallen asleep, not Nina, Annie, she's fallen asleep on the sofa she's got Bridal, like the magazine, and it's open on the page of like budgeting your wedding or something like that. And like taking a runway dress to a tailor and having them copy it and things like that. Which, you know, all reasonable suggestions. I was like, yeah, that's reasonable. And he's like, oh, I couldn't possibly do this to my baby girl. There's a real class thing that comes into it, the experience of watching this film, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure if we're at the right point in the plot now, but one of the scenes I thought was the most pathetic was when Annie came home and said that the whole wedding is off because Brian had bought her the wrong wedding gift that has the wrong message in implying that she's going to be a housewife.
Let's
because
just say
he's bought a blender.
Okay, well, let's just say for future reference, right? I would avoid kitchen appliances to your future wife as a wedding present.
It's one appliance that they both can share and like make smoothies out of.
That's not the idea of how. That's not the idea of a present.
It's hardly.
It's not something for you to share.
It's hardly an apron, is it?
I think we have different responses to that.
Is that
gift.
worthy of calling the wedding off?
I don't think worthy of calling the whole wedding off, but I think you have to bear in mind that they haven't known each other long. So Annie is seeing this as like a sign she's missed something.
But George's reaction to it, Steve Martin, it's very relatable. His face is saying, this is pathetic.
Well, I think he then feels guilt because that argument about the blender, it's like it's their first argument, which it probably is because they'd only been together 8 months. So it's like their first proper argument. Then kind of domino effects spirals into a bigger argument about their families. And Brian then brings up this story that George was looking through the bank books in the house and fell into the pool. And Annie defends her dad and says that never happened, you're lying. But George had never told her the actual truth of what happened that night because he was trying to say, oh, everything's fine, to try and please her. So I think that's George's reaction is guilt because he hasn't told the truth. And he then feels kind of complicit in the fact that he has inadvertently caused this breakup.
And the predictability of the plot is very much clear, I think, from the next scene when George decides to take Brian out for a drink and he realises how gutted he sees
but it was quite
Brian.
sweet because Brian was crying and
Yeah.
I like it when a man cries.
So that gets George on Brian's side. So there we go. He's starting to accept the fact that they do deserve to be together. And the wedding is going to take place and he will be a willing father.
Yeah.
The wedding. What did we think?
Oh, you're missing your favourite snowstorm scene, which is the night before, in the middle of the night when Annie and George both can't sleep and they end up going outside and playing basketball together. And you know, they have a heart-to-heart. And this was actually the maybe the bit that touched me the most because Annie's... It was reminiscent for me of a speech that happens in the remake of Little Women, the Greta Gerwig one, which, you know, I love, about
You're
the
a bit
idea
of a sucker
of...
for that thing of letting go and growing older, aren't you?
Yeah, because I think, especially about my relationship with my mum, I can empathise a lot with that feeling of growing and recognizing kind of important moments in your life at the time they're happening. So in Little Women, Emma Watson gives a speech about how she's getting married the next day and it feels like her childhood is over. And I think this is similar when Annie is saying, like, I was packing up my bedroom and it feels like I'm a child. This is my last day of being a child, and tomorrow I'm an adult. And I found that scene touching, but then it just is kind of overwritten by the ridiculously cheesy snowstorm that starts.
Well, and the camera pans away to see them embrace as father and daughter, and then you get the fake snow coming down.
One thing we haven't talked about, though, is the fact that this is one of those massively underrepresented father-daughter relationship films. And we talked about it when we did After Sun. Was it 2 years ago now?
Well, we did After Sun last year.
Oh, last year. So when we did After Sun, we were saying this is just one of those films one of those relationships that's just so underrepresented in films. So I will say that I respect the fact that this film is exploring that dynamic. I think it's massively underrepresented.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the story, isn't it? I think this is a remake of that story.
I
so
know,
it's yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's just nice to see it.
I think this film, from memory, and again, compared to the 1950s one, I think they really try and hone in again on the sentimentality of the cherished dynamic between the two.
And I wonder if that's why this film is remembered, is viewed so highly, because it is an underrepresented relationship, but that impacts so many people. So I wonder if that's why this film is loved so much.
But for all the focus they give on the father, there's barely any on the mother.
Oh, it is, we'll get to it, but it is not a strong
character.
It's not her fault. It is a weak character. So it's not a strong performance from Diane Keaton, unfortunately. We'll get into that later.
The mother in the original, I think, did have much more airtime. It was played by Joan Bennett, who was a real Hollywood stalwart of the 40s. But poor old Diane Keaton really doesn't get much to go on here, I don't think.
No.
We'll talk about her career and performance in a bit. So, the wedding.
Well, I found the whole...
And the after party.
Well, yeah, I found the whole wedding scene and sequence very frustrating, because all you've seen is this poor man have to, spend tens of thousands of dollars on this wedding. And he doesn't even, after that kind of handing her over at the altar, his own wife doesn't even stick near him at the after party.
Well, he doesn't get to enjoy the affair, does he?
He's not enjoying it. He's slaving away.
He's trying to find his daughter.
The wedding coordinator, whose whole job it is, who's being paid all this, like 15% or whatever they say of this money, leaves him to deal with the catastrophe, which is the parking situation.
Yeah.
So he misses the cake being cut, the first dance. He misses the father-daughter dance. He misses everything. He doesn't get to dance with his wife. He doesn't get to speak to people because he's out dealing with all the issues.
And I feel like that parking situation, was a real missed opportunity. That could have been something genuinely funny and a pandemonium type thing that may have happened. But they just decide to leave it. And they just decide to get out of it by having the kids turn up and park the cars.
And his expectations keep changing, because he says, I just want to kiss the bride. I just want to dance with my daughter. I just want to say goodbye. And at every turn, it doesn't work out for him. And it just feels very frustrating. And then, his daughter is good enough to call from the airport. And that's kind of how the film ends.
By the end, when he goes back to that circular part where he had been narrating at the end of the wedding in his living room, and he's looking around at how suddenly empty the house looks. I mean, he looks shattered, and you don't blame him, because he's just been through a financial and stressful day, a complete rigmarole.
So
there's definitely a lot of sympathy to be had with Steve Martin's character.
Yeah, I can't say it's a particularly satisfying ending either, because you just think all she said is, I love you. She doesn't even say thank you to him. She just says, I love you very much.
I mean, it's a crap ending. Let's just say it right. I think it's awful. It's totally cheesy and rubbish.
However, there is another Nancy Meyers motif at the end, which is him dancing with his wife with the fairy lights around them, and then it panning out with the window. That's at the end of the holiday, with the New Year's Eve dancing.
Yeah, well, thank God she got better at doing it and writing it.
Okay, well, we can't pin all the blame on Nancy Meyers because there were 3 other screenwriters on this film.
Yeah, including her husband, who was
Who
the director.
directed.
Yeah. Yeah, a strange one to look back on, really. But let's talk about some of the trivia around it. So the remake rights to the movie were acquired by Disney, whose finance partner Touchstone Pictures funded the entire production of the film. Steve Martin was a big figure around it, so he'd agreed to do the project, and he'd actually written his own screenplay because he was a big fan of the previous film that Charles Shire and Nancy Meyers had released 4 years earlier with Baby Boom, with Diane Keaton playing the lead. That was in 1987. Steve Martin had the couple rewrite his own screenplay that he'd written with himself and Diane Keaton in mind. Remake was very successful, and it did get a lot of positive reviews from the critics. And this one earned a sequel, Father of the Bride Part 2.
Which I think I've weirdly seen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was released in 1995, so 4 years after this. This was Nancy Meyers and Diane Keaton's second of 5 films they did together. The first was Baby Boom in 1987, Father of the Bride 2, Something's Gotta Give in 2003, and Father of the Bride Part 3 in 2020.
Was that like a COVID special done over like Zoom or something?
Yeah, I think so. I may have to check that, but I haven't really heard many people talk about it. But it was good and quite fitting that she got to do that before she, sadly passed away. That would have been 4 years after that Part 3 film.
Yeah.
The film didn't get much in terms of mainstream film awards, but Kimberly Williams, who played Annie, was nominated for Best Breakthrough Performance at the MTV Movie Awards, as well as a nomination at the same ceremony for Steve Martin for the Best Comedic Performance. But no, it didn't make any inroads at the big ceremonies like Golden Globes or Oscars. So let's talk about the cast. Steve Martin as George. And it's our first Steve Martin film for Couple and Indemnity.
It's by far not my favourite Steve Martin performance.
No, I think we agree on this. I don't think he's the worst in this, and it's tricky because he obviously was a big influence in the actual production of the film. But he's the most sympathetic character, and he is the lead character. He has a series of things going against his wishes.
Yeah.
But the whole focus of the comedy around him goes out the window after.
But I don't think that's
mansion
his
scene.
fault. I think that's the screenplay. I actually think without him, this film would be unwatchable. So I think that he does what he gives the screenplay his best shot. I don't think the screenplay is strong enough for Steve Martin's comedy to shine through. That's the issue, because Steve Martin is primarily is first and foremost a comedian.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is enough of those comedic moments. You have the early ones at the dinner table and the in-laws' house in Bel Air. And I think after that, it relies too much on this idea that he is being ridiculous. And I don't think he's being ridiculous. So then the comedy completely falls flat. And then it's kind of relying on Martin Short. And that's just horrendous. So there is, I feel like after the in-laws Bel Air mansion, there is no point that really made me laugh.
Yeah, and it's tricky because the lead character, it's hard for me not to compare it to the lead character in the 1950 film. Spencer Tracy, who wasn't a comedian, by the way, one of the best actors from Hollywood history. It was so funny, that performance, especially in the after-party scene in the house. It actually made me laugh out loud. The opposite of this, unfortunately. So it's a mixed bag, really, in terms of Steve Martin. But it's good we've covered him on the podcast because one of the most successful American comedians to emerge in the 70s. And the 80s was really his decade, wasn't it? He really rose to stardom with some big films like The Jerk, Three Amigos, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, which we've seen before, Couple and Indemnity.
Oh, I can't wait to do that one for the pod.
And
I love Planes, Trains.
We should come back to that, absolutely. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels as well with Michael Caine. Is a popular comedy film, and we've done Cheaper by the Dozen before the podcast, as we said. Maybe we'll cover that.
I don't think we'll cover it, but it's the second one I grew up with, and I've shown you the first one, but I can't wait to show you the second one at some point. But it's not one I think we'll pod.
I mean, the first one wasn't a great film, but it was funnier than this. I don't think I can deny that. I think it was genuinely funnier in certain parts, but not a great movie.
But I think that's because Cheaper by the Dozen isn't trying to do romance as well as comedy, as well as family kind of drama-esque stuff. It's very clear the family comedy bit is very central.
And the remake of the Pink Panther, which I saw at the cinema at the time in like 2006 when it first came out, because I was such a fan of the original series. It's not in the unbelievable like masterclass and extreme performance level of Peter Sellers, but it's not bad. It's certainly very funny in some moments, and there are some standout scenes in it, and it's a very interesting cast. You got like John Reno and Beyonce in it.
Yeah.
So Diane Keaton as Nina. Now this is a big one because this is one of my favourite Hollywood actresses of all time.
Is this her first feature on the pod?
It is.
That is crazy that we're starting with this film for Diane Keaton.
Yeah, that's the dampener, I think, because it's not a good one to talk about in terms of reflecting her talent.
It's only up from here.
Yeah, it is only up from here because this is, I think, the worst film I've seen her in. Probably her worst performance, but she doesn't get much to go on.
I don't think if we were watching some of those other kind of
later films,
comedies that she did, I don't think, because I've seen her in what was that horrendous film I saw her in?
The one she did with
Brendan Gleeson. Oh, what was that film called?
What was the one she did with the three women with Jane Fonda? Book Club.
That's not okay. Hampstead was the one that she did the year before that. That was the one I was thinking.
Thinking
Hampstead is genuinely. I saw someone call it the other day. The Waitrose genre. I call it the Marigold Hotel genre, which is those like. I feel really bad. This sounds kind of ageist when I say this, but like that kind of middle to older age film genre that started coming out after The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel,
and they rolled out all the old British actors.
There's always Maggie Smith in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Hampstead was 2017, and then Book Club was 2018, and then Book Club had a sequel in 2023, so that was her third to last film.
Yeah, because Book Club was a trio of older women. I'm sure it was Jane Fonda, Candice Bergen as well,
and Mary Steenburgen.
Yeah.
The one I was thinking of was. What was that one? They're like singing something in it.
Oh, that was another Nancy Meyers film. That was The First Wives Club.
The First Wives Club,
Yeah.
which actually, because that's Bette Midler,
Oh, yeah.
Olivia Goldsmith, Goldie Hawn. There's that really famous. There's that scene where they're singing something.
Yeah,
I've never
in the
seen
house.
it. It's also got like Gloria Steinem in it. That's so random. And Ivana Trump.
I think that's a mixed bag, but it may not be podcast worthy. But I think it's a bit unfair to reflect on Diane Keaton in the second part of her career, because the first part of her career was unbelievable, and she was a fashion icon, and she did some top films. Like
Yeah, you've seen far more of her filmography than I have, because you've seen a lot more of you've seen Annie Hall and stuff, which I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, she really became a frequent collaborator with Woody Allen in the 70s. She was in 8 of his films. I presume they were all in the 70s.
Was she in Play It Again, Sam?
She was in Play It Again, Sam, which we saw before the podcast. And then, of course, Annie Hall, which we're going to have to cover on the podcast. We simply have to. And the Godfather films.
Yeah.
All 3 of them. She's unbelievable in that. She's the best female in The Godfather.
There's not many.
No, there's a few, though. There's a few. There's Sophia Coppola who comes in the third one, and there's some other interesting performances in the second one. But Reds, that's probably arguably her best career performance, I would say, and a mixed bag of a film, but she is unbelievable in it.
Mm.
So it's really good we got to cover her, and probably the highlight of doing this episode. Martin Short as Frank Egelhofer. Well, okay, I think we'll skip over the actual performance, because I think it was a shambles, personally.
I'm literally no comment at this rate.
Yeah, I think it was you'd almost argue it was offensive. But very popular American comedian who's done a lot of work and almost had a partnership with Steve Martin, which would explain his casting in this movie. You know, he's done a lot of work for Saturday Night Live over the years in the 80s and early 90s. He was in Three Amigos with Steve Martin. So yeah, they've had this partnership, and that's led to a lot of touring and the stand-up shows they've done together.
Oh wait, Don't they do this TV show that's big at the moment?
Only Murders in the Building?
Yeah, it's got Selena Gomez in it as well. They're like the 3 leads.
Right. Okay. So I'm not sure if we'll ever cover him on the podcast again. Apparently he had voice roles in The Prince of Egypt or Frankenweenie by Tim Burton. Ever want to cover those?
No. Prince of Egypt is actually highly rated,
Yeah.
as is like Emperor's New Groove and things like that. But weirdly, I was talking about it the other day. But Frankenweenie, no, is not going to feature even in our B list, which is off podcast. No.
Yeah, that's our Patreon special.
We're not on Patreon.
Kimberly Williams as Annie. Were you familiar with her at all?
No.
No? And what did you think of the performance?
Well, it's kind of insipid, isn't it? It doesn't, again, it's a screenplay, doesn't really give her much.
I don't think it's bad, but I don't think she's got a lot of
I guess
to go
like
on.
the key moment for her in terms of like act is the bit where she's like crying and because she's broken up with, and that's like the pivotal moment, and that whole scene just comes across like pathetic. But that's because of the screenplay, the fact that they're ending the wedding over a blender.
Yeah, we keep coming back to the same thing, unfortunately, with this film. It all comes back down to the writing. But looking into career, she's done very few films since this, really. She's done some supporting roles in TV shows like 2.5 Men. She was in The Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell, if we ever want to cover that. But that's really it that I picked out. George Newbern as Brian, not an actor I'm familiar with at all. He's had a big TV career. Apparently he was in 3 episodes of Friends.
Oh, did he date Phoebe?
And he has done a lot of voice roles and a lot of like direct-to-video superhero franchise films. So very unlikely to cover him again. But I think one of the highlights of the film, in terms of the cast, was Kieran Culkin as the younger brother.
Oh, he's so cute.
He is very cute. And some of his dialogue was actually some of the best stuff in the movie.
Yeah, for a child actor, like, you have to respect the fact, like, he comes across, at no point are you like, oh, he's forcing the acting, or
No.
it comes so naturally to him, and
Yeah.
he must be so young when they're filming this.
He made his feature film debut the year before as an 8-year-old. So that meant he must have been 9 in this movie. So his debut was Home Alone 1 as Fuller. the
Yeah,
brother.
because he was born in 82, so
Yeah, that's right. So this would have been probably his second film. And he then appeared in Home Alone 2 in another small supporting role.
he does look quite a lot older than he did in Home Alone 1, though. So
Yeah, but they're only a year apart.
no, I know, but
So-
I guess it's how kids grow up fast.
Yeah,
don't
but an
they?
interesting career he's had now, because he had a lot of other supporting parts later in the 90s in very different type of films. He was in She's All That, which is another like popular teen romantic comedy, I think.
Yeah.
He was also in The Cider House Rules, which was a very like period respected romantic drama from a John Grisham novel.
Yep.
That won a lot of awards. I think Michael Caine won the Oscar for it. But then he took a long break from acting in the 2000s, and his return was Scott Pilgrim versus the World in 2010. If we ever cover that.
That's interesting that he took a long break. I wonder what he was doing.
Yeah, I think you could read into it. Maybe he
But then
just
I guess
wanted to-
around the time that maybe Macaulay was taking a big break because of things that happened with him. So I don't know if maybe they just both of them will just pull back.
And then I think what we've known him for primarily as an adult actor is for his fantastic performance and role in Succession as Roman Roy.
Yeah, of course. Such a good performance.
It is a great character and so quotable and very funny. Quite cringy in some parts, but very, very funny, and a great.
I think he's probably my
casting
favourite.
choice.
I mean, I know that Jeremy Strong in it is very good.
Very good. Jeremy Strong.
And of course,
Matthew McFadden.
Matthew McFadden. Oh my goodness! But I think that Kieran Culkin really kind of revitalized his career with that
I
performance.
mean, that's
in
the strength of the
Succession.
show. I think Succession. It's some of the performances. That's what it's really all in. I think
Yeah.
it doesn't quite hit the heights of like Mad Men for the plot and the like deeper themes, but I think Succession is all about some of the fantastic
Yeah,
performances.
he is unbelievable in that show.
Yeah. Lastly, in terms of the cast, a very brief performance for Eugene Levy as the singer, who does a little audition.
They're doing an
doesn't he,
audition, aren't they?
for the parents. And it's his second appearance on Couple Indemnity after American Pie.
Yeah, of course.
So it was
I
good to
love
see
Eugene
him.
Levy.
And it's probably the youngest we've seen him, isn't it?
And yet he always seems older.
To look old, I know. He does. A quick word for Charles Shire. He was an American director and writer. He was married to Nancy Meyers for 19 years, between 1980 and 99. And like his wife at the time, directed a lot of romantic comedies like Baby Boom, as we mentioned, with Diane Keaton, which I think you probably should add to the list, and I'd hope it's better than this. As well as the sequel to this in 95. He did the remake of Alfie with Jude Law, which I hope we don't have to watch.
I didn't like that film.
No. So that was pretty much slammed. So it's a mixed bag in terms of his career. So I don't know if we'll be covering him again, unless we do Baby Boom, most likely. So, what was your final rating out of 5?
I give it 3.25. I think that it was generally quite a nice way to spend a couple of hours, but it wasn't anything particularly groundbreaking, and it was, yeah. I mean, there's lots of flaws with this film, and it's not one that I would feel particularly strongly about watching again. I said that it was, it had some funny moments, and that kind of underrepresented father-daughter relationship that I think I just want to see more of in film, because I think it's such an important relationship that's just not explored. It at least in kind of mainstream media. I feel like the indie circuit's probably done it a lot more, but not in the mainstream media. My favourite scenes were definitely that kind of early dinner table and Bel Air mansion scene. And as a Nancy Meyers fan, I enjoyed kind of spotting those moments of, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, that must have fed into that scene in Parent Trap, and that fed into that scene in The Holiday. So for me, it was kind of like a fun little kind of Easter egg. But it's very cheesy, even for me. And I love a bit of, I'm looking for corny in my life, but I just found that the kind of the plot falls down when you, depending on your own personal kind of circumstances as well.
The Parent Trap was one of the earliest films we ever watched together. And it was before we started.
I'm feeling you might need to rewatch it.
It was before we started kind of marking films and going into it with a critical eye. So I have no memory of if it's as cheesy as this.
Oh no,
or
it's
as
not
bad
as
as this.
No, because you've got the lovely Natasha Richardson, who is divine in that film, and you've got what's his name, Quaid.
Yeah,
Dennis Quaid. You've got obviously Lindsay Lohan, and I can't remember the name of the actress who plays the stepmom. But oh my goodness, it's such a good film. I love that film.
I know you grew up with it, and it's one of your most fondest films. But
that film epitomizes summer to me, because it's all based around a summer camp.
I mean, we did The Holiday at Christmas, and for me, that is about as good as romantic comedy can get. It's not my favourite romantic comedy of all time,
but it's Christmas.
It's really is charming, and it has so many sharp-witted gags. The casting in it, as we mentioned in that podcast, was perfect, because all the characters are so different and bring so many different unique facets of personality to the show. The American-British culture clash is wonderful.
You know, when people say, like, they give you the desert island thing, and they're like, you can only take one film with you to a desert island. The Holiday is my desert island film. I could watch that film over and over again.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
It's a mood lifter, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I'm on a desert island, that film is going to pick me up.
So your rating of this was 3.25. My rating is 3, and I think that's as generous as I can go, frankly. I think it's easy watching. Some of the updated early 90s feel is interesting for the first 5 minutes or so, with the fashion. And you pointed out when you see George's warehouse, don't you, of some of the t-shirts and hairstyles.
It's more the colour that you're suddenly assaulted with, like, neon pink and denim.
The Nancy Meyers touches were interesting to a point, but I think they're greatly refined later in her career, as we saw in The Holiday. And Kieran Culkin was the standout actor.
He's so cute.
I don't think any of the adults came out with much credit at all.
I feel like it's a bit unfair to Steve Martin, but I think that I agree in that Kieran Culkin is is probably the most convincing thing.
Yeah,
Part of the whole
And
thing.
ultimately, I just think it's vastly inferior to the Vincent Minnelli film
Mm.
in 1950, and we should do that for the podcast, quite simply, and compare it.
Oh, it's on your list,
yeah.
not mine.
So we'll see. Well, you're welcome to pick it anytime you wish. All right, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with my next choice. Right, it's for the last 3 episodes, we've watched a bit of a mixed bag of films. We've watched Hiroshima Mon Amour, which is a very deep, quite bleak, early French New Wave film that we needed lifting from after that. And we watched Horrible Bosses, which was very funny, but it was fairly lowbrow. And it certainly made us laugh a lot more than this. And this was, as we said, a bit of a schmaltz fest that we were rather disappointed by. So I think we need to up the game a bit. And we're going to do an absolute Hollywood classic. And we're revisiting The Master of Suspense.
We're going back to Hitchcock.
We are.
This is a big one.
So we have just done Vertigo, of course, back a few months ago. So it's the next big one.
It's a big one.
Mm,
Is it Psycho?
no, we've got one more to go before Psycho. We are doing arguably the most fun Hitchcock film, and many people of an older generation's favourite all-round Hitchcock film.
It's not The Birds.
No.
The Birds is later.
No, you're forgetting a big one.
Can you give me a clue?
An actor, one of the most charming debonair actors of all time, not James Stewart, and it will be his second appearance on the podcast. The biggest clue I can give you is a crop field.
A crop field? That's not a clue.
With a plane flying over.
Oh, we're
the
doing
crop-
North by Northwest.
We are doing North
Oh,
by
it's
North-
actually one I've seen. This is so exciting.
Exactly. So you will be fairly familiar with it. So am I right? You had seen it at university
Yeah.
in film studies. So that was quite a few years ago now.
Oh god, yeah, we're talking like at least 6 years.
So I think you're going to really enjoy this viewing.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, it is.
I love this. I really enjoyed this film when I saw it,
This
and
is-
I enjoy showing clips of it to my students.
This, I think, is one of the most popular and accessible films of Hitch's, up there with Rear Window, I would say.
I didn't realise this was before Psycho. I thought this was after Psycho.
It was 1959, the year after Vertigo, the year before Psycho.
Wow. Okay.
So it's right sandwiched in between.
I thought it was later.
No, and some of the fashion and the Technicolor is stupendous, once again. And the script, we're going to go from a very poor quality script to an absolute golden script. It's very, very funny in certain parts. And Cary Grant's best movie, but we'll talk about that in the next episode. So I'm really looking forward to that. Right, well, this has been Couple Indemnity, and as ever, you can catch us on all the good podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify, and we are on coupleindemnity@gmail.com if you wish to get in contact with us regarding any feedback or recommendations. We are on all the socials at Couple Indemnity. She's been Izzy, and I've been Hal, and we're signing out this week, and we'll be back with some Hitch and Cary Grant with North by Northwest. See you then, guys.
Bye, guys.